The Aurora Research Station hung silent against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling storms, its arrays of sensors constantly scanning the depths of space. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the primary observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic displays that surrounded her. After 15 years of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, the station's quantum sensors had detected something unprecedented, a signal that defied natural explanation. "Director Matthews, you need to see this," Sarah called, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The signal pattern pulsed with an unmistakable rhythm, too precise to be anything but artificial. James Matthews, the station's director, floated through the zero-gravity chamber, his silver hair catching the light from Jupiter's reflection. "Talk to me, Dr. Chen. What are we looking at?" "The signal's originating from beyond the Kuiper belt, but it's not following any known orbital patterns. It's moving against the solar wind." Sarah highlighted a series of mathematical sequences that scrolled across her screen. "And sir, it's getting stronger." Within hours, similar reports flooded in from observatories across Earth and Mars. The signal grew from a whisper to a chorus, and with it came the first images of the Viridian ships. They emerged from the darkness like leaves unfurling in spring, organic curves of living metal that seemed to absorb and redirect light itself. The first transmission arrived on a Wednesday. Every screen on Earth displayed the same image, a humanoid figure with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies within them. "People of Earth," the being spoke in perfect English, its voice resonating with a warmth that put millions at ease. "We are the Viridians, and we come in peace." They called themselves shepherds of younger species, guardians who had watched humanity's development for centuries. Their technology seemed like magic. They offered cures for diseases, solutions for climate change, and promises of faster-than-light travel. World leaders scrambled to welcome them, and humanity embraced their new mentors with open arms. Dr. Chen was among the first scientists invited aboard the Viridian mothership. As she studied their technology, something nagged at the edge of her consciousness. The numbers didn't add up. Their explanations were too perfect, their solutions too convenient, but her concerns were dismissed as paranoia. In the secured labs beneath the Himalayan mountains, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez made a discovery that would change everything. While analyzing Viridian biological samples, he noticed something strange in their cellular structure. "They're not adapted to Earth's bacterial environment," he muttered to himself, running the tests again. "They're not just vulnerable to it, they're terrified of it." Before he could report his findings, the Viridians struck. Their ships, once beautiful and serene, transformed into weapons of war. The organic metal sprouted spines and weapon ports, and their true forms emerged, not the gentle humanoids they'd presented, but something ancient and hungry. The initial assault was precise and devastating. Major military installations worldwide went dark in seconds. The Viridians had spent months mapping Earth's defenses while playing the role of benevolent advisors. They knew exactly where to strike, but they had made a crucial mistake. In their arrogance, they assumed that humanity would break under their superior technology. They didn't understand that humans had spent millennia fighting against overwhelming odds. They didn't realize that Earth itself was humanity's greatest ally. As cities burned and governments fell, Dr. Rodriguez worked frantically to secure his research. He transmitted his findings through hidden channels to resistance cells forming in the chaos. The Viridians might have superior technology, but they had a weakness, one that humans had evolved alongside for millions of years. In the ruins of Tokyo, Captain Maya Patel gathered survivors in the ancient tunnel systems beneath the city. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous tribes melted into the wilderness, carrying with them knowledge that would prove vital. In the depths of the Marianas Trench, research submarines repurposed for war prepared to strike from below. The Viridians expected submission. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that refused to surrender, an enemy that had turned their own deception against them. As their ships darkened the skies, Humanity prepared for a fight that would determine not just their survival, but their place among the stars. The war for Earth was about to begin, and the Viridians were about to learn why humans had survived every catastrophe their planet had thrown at them. They were about to discover that their perfect deception had overlooked humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt, to survive, and to fight back against impossible odds. Dr. Chen watched from the hidden bunker beneath Aurora Station. She smiled grimly. "They showed us their technology," she whispered, "and now we know exactly how to break it." 3 weeks after the initial Viridian assault, the ruins of Chicago stood as a testament to humanity's resilience. Colonel Rebecca Hayes watched from a hidden observation post as alien patrols swept through the streets below. Their biomechanical armor gleamed with an unnatural light, but she had noticed something crucial. The patrols were becoming more frequent, more nervous. "They're scared," she whispered into her encrypted communicator. "Every time we hit them with traditional bacteria, their suits go into overdrive trying to sterilize everything around them." The discovery of the Viridians' weakness to Earth's microscopic life had changed the nature of the war. What started as a one-sided slaughter had evolved into something else entirely. Humans were adapting, learning, and fighting back in ways the aliens never expected. Deep beneath the Montana wilderness, Dr. Rodriguez's laboratory had become the heart of Earth's scientific resistance. The aging microbiologist hadn't slept in days, his eyes red-rimmed as he studied cultures under quantum microscopes. "Their entire civilization is built on sterility," he explained to the military leaders gathered around his workstation. "They've engineered themselves so completely that even common soil bacteria are lethal to them. It's why they never tried to colonize Earth before. They were waiting for us to sanitize our world for them." In orbit, the Viridian fleet maintained their chokehold on major population centers, but their ground forces were experiencing unprecedented losses. Every engagement with human resistance fighters exposed them to new bacterial strains. Their suits could only filter so much, and Earth's biosphere was proving to be their greatest enemy. Lieutenant Maria Santos led her team through the flooded subway tunnels of Mexico City, carrying precious cargo. Samples of specially cultivated bacteria designed to target Viridian bioarmor. "Remember," she told her squad, "we're not just fighting with guns anymore. Every puddle of water, every handful of soil, is a weapon." The Viridians responded to their mounting losses with increasing brutality. They began sterilizing entire cities with orbital weapons, turning urban centers into sterile wastelands. But they couldn't sterilize an entire planet, and humanity had learned to use their own fastidiousness against them. In the Australian outback, Aboriginal warriors taught resistance fighters how to use the land itself as a weapon. They showed them how to corrupt Viridian water recycling systems with naturally occurring bacteria, how to lead alien patrols into areas where microscopic life thrived in abundance. Dr. Chen, working from a mobile laboratory in the Ural Mountains, made another crucial discovery. "They're ships," she explained over secure channels. "They're not just machines. They're living things, engineered to be as sterile as their creators. If we can introduce the right bacteria into their life support systems." The resistance grew stronger each day. Humans had spent their entire history fighting diseases, adapting to new threats, living in harmony with the microscopic world that the Viridians found so terrifying. What the aliens saw as humanity's primitive coexistence with bacteria had become their greatest weapon. Colonel Hayes watched as another Viridian patrol moved through Chicago's streets, their movements becoming increasingly erratic. Reports from around the world confirmed the same pattern. The invaders were losing their confidence. Their perfect invasion was unraveling in the face of an enemy they couldn't simply overwhelm with technology. In their orbital command ships, Viridian leaders faced a difficult reality. Their ground forces were being decimated not by human weapons, but by the planet itself. Every fallen soldier, every contaminated ship was a reminder that they had severely underestimated both humanity and Earth's biosphere. As the war entered its second month, humanity's strategy crystallized. They didn't need to match the Viridians' technological superiority. They just needed to remind them that Earth's greatest defenders were too small to see with the naked eye, too numerous to eliminate, and too essential to human survival to ever truly defeat. Dr. Rodriguez, looking at his latest test results, allowed himself a small smile. "They wanted to cleanse our world," he said to his team. "Instead, they're about to learn why evolution favored those who could adapt, rather than those who tried to control everything around them." The tide was turning, not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through humanity's understanding and acceptance of their world's natural state. The Viridians had engineered themselves into an evolutionary corner, and Earth's biosphere was about to show them the price of their sterile perfection. The underground bunker beneath Seattle's ruins hummed with activity as Dr. Sarah Chen presented her latest findings. Holographic displays showed the molecular structure of the Viridian bioships, their complexities laid bare after months of study. "Their greatest strength is their greatest weakness," she explained, pointing to the ship's cellular structure. "Every vessel in their fleet is essentially a single living organism." Captain Maya Patel, her combat armor still bearing scorch marks from her last encounter with Viridian forces, leaned forward. "And living things can get sick," she finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. The discovery had come at a heavy cost. Thousands of resistance fighters had sacrificed themselves to collect samples from downed Viridian vessels. Each piece of data, each captured specimen had revealed more about their enemy's fundamental vulnerability. Dr. Rodriguez's team had worked tirelessly to develop what they called ship blight, a specially engineered bacterial strain that could survive in space and specifically target the organic components of Viridian technology. The challenge wasn't creating the bacteria. It was delivering it to the enemy fleet. High above Earth, the Viridian command ship, Eternal Purity, maintained its vigil. Fleet Commander Zix 427 watched the planet below with growing unease. Their ground forces were being decimated by what the humans called biological warfare, a concept that filled every Viridian with instinctive horror. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous guides led resistance teams through the dense undergrowth, showing them plants that hosted bacteria particularly lethal to Viridian biology. These natural weapons were cultivated in hidden laboratories, refined and strengthened until they could breach even the most advanced alien sterilization systems. Lieutenant Santos, now leading a global strike team, orchestrated simultaneous attacks on Viridian ground bases. Her fighters didn't just strike with conventional weapons. They deployed bacterial bombs that turned the alien sterile environments into breeding grounds for Earth's microscopic defenders. The Viridians' response was predictable but costly. They began bombing their own contaminated facilities from orbit, destroying billions in resources to maintain their sterile standards. Each loss forced them to spread their remaining forces thinner, creating gaps in their planetary control. Colonel Hayes, coordinating with resistance cells worldwide, saw the pattern emerging. "They're not just fighting us anymore," she reported to the unified command. "They're fighting the entire planet. Every rainfall carries our weapons. Every wind spreads our arsenal." In his Montreal laboratory, Dr. Rodriguez made the breakthrough they'd been waiting for. "The ship blight is ready," he announced over secure channels. "But we need to get it into their fleet's ventilation systems. One contaminated ship will infect their entire armada." The plan that emerged was audacious. Using captured Viridian shuttlecraft, modified to conceal their bacterial payload, human strike teams would launch a seemingly conventional attack on the orbital fleet. The real weapon wouldn't be their guns or bombs, but the microscopic cargo they carried. As preparations for the orbital strike began, Earth's resistance realized they had already achieved something remarkable. Humanity had taken the Viridians' technological superiority and turned it against them. Their obsession with sterility, their fear of contamination, had become psychological weapons as potent as any bacteria. Dr. Chen, watching the strike teams prepare, reflected on the irony. The Viridians had come to Earth expecting to find primitive beings who needed to be uplifted, cleansed, and controlled. Instead, they found a species that had spent millions of years evolving alongside the very things they feared most. In orbit, Commander Zix 427 received increasingly desperate reports from ground forces. Their troops were being infected despite their best precautions. Their sterile environments were being compromised. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were forcing the Viridians to confront their own evolutionary weaknesses. The Resistance's orbital strike would begin at dawn. As the teams made their final preparations, humanity held its breath. They had found their enemy's weakness, developed a weapon they couldn't defend against, and were about to take the fight into space itself. Dr. Rodriguez, watching the bacterial cultures that would soon be deployed against the Viridian fleet, smiled grimly. "They thought they could cleanse our world," he said to his team. "Instead, our world is about to cleanse their fleet." The war was entering its final phase, and Earth's smallest inhabitants were about to play their part in humanity's greatest battle for survival. Dawn broke over the Pacific as Operation Biostorm began. 50 captured Viridian shuttles, each modified by Dr. Chen's team and piloted by Earth's best pilots, launched simultaneously from hidden bases worldwide. Captain Maya Patil led the formation, her shuttle carrying the primary payload of ship-blight bacteria. "Remember," her voice crackled over secure comms, "we only need one ship to breach their defenses. The bacteria will do the rest." In her shuttle's cargo hold, specialized containers held the weaponized bacteria, engineered to target the living metal of Viridian ships. The Viridian orbital fleet responded exactly as predicted. Their arrogance, their certainty, and their technological superiority made them predictable. They moved to intercept the incoming shuttles with the same tactics they used throughout the war. Commander Zix 427 watched from the bridge of eternal purity as the human attack force approached. "Primitive vessels," he sneered. "They still don't understand the futility of their resistance." He ordered his fleet to engage, confident in their superior weapons and impenetrable sterilization fields. What the Viridians didn't realize was that the attack formation was a deception. While their main fleet engaged the obvious threat, smaller, stealthier craft slipped through their defensive screen. Dr. Rodriguez's calculations had been perfect. The Viridians' own sterilization fields created blind spots in their sensor coverage. Lieutenant Santos led the infiltration team, her shuttle approaching the massive engineering section of a Viridian carrier. "They're so focused on keeping things out," she whispered. "They never considered what would happen if something got in." The first sign that something was wrong came when several Viridian ships reported system anomalies. Their living metal began behaving erratically, organic circuits misfiring as ship blight took hold. Commander Zix 427 watched in horror as reports flooded in. The impossible was happening. Their sterile environments were being compromised. Colonel Hayes, coordinating the attack from Earth, received the confirmation she'd been waiting for. "The bacteria is spreading through their fleet's ventilation systems," she announced to resistance leaders worldwide. "Their ships are now contaminating each other." The effect was devastating. Viridian vessels, their living metal infected by Earth bacteria, began losing control. Their perfect formation dissolved into chaos as ship after ship succumbed to the microscopic invaders. The mighty fleet that had held Earth hostage was being defeated not by weapons, but by life itself. Dr. Chen, monitoring the battle from her laboratory, observed something unexpected. "The bacterial infection is spreading faster than we predicted," she reported. "Their ship's immune responses are actually helping distribute the ship blight throughout their fleet." In orbit, panic spread through the Viridian command structure. Their worst nightmare had become reality. Their entire fleet was being contaminated by Earth's biological weapons. Commander Zix 427 ordered an emergency retreat, but it was too late. The bacteria had already compromised their faster-than-light drive systems. Captain Patel watched as the mighty Viridian fleet began to break apart. Ships that had seemed invincible were now drifting helplessly, their living metal dying from an infection they had no defense against. "This is how their empire ends," she transmitted to Earth. not with a bang, but with 1 billion microscopic bites. The few Viridian ships that managed to escape spread the contamination to their other fleets. Their entire military infrastructure, built on the principle of perfect sterility, was vulnerable to the weapon humanity had created. Reports reach Earth of Viridian colonies falling into chaos as their technology succumbed to bacterial infection. Dr. Rodriguez, watching the data stream in from orbital sensors, turned to his team. "They engineered themselves into perfection," he said, "but perfection is fragile. Evolution favors adaptation, not isolation." As the last Viridian ships retreated from Earth orbit, humanity began to understand the full scope of their victory. They hadn't just defended their planet. They had exposed a fundamental flaw in the Viridians' entire civilization. Their obsession with sterility, their rejection of natural evolution, had made them vulnerable to the very things they sought to eliminate. Colonel Hayes, standing in the ruins of what had once been Chicago, looked up at the sky where disabled Viridian ships now drifted like dead leaves. "They came to cleanse our world," she said to her troops, "but our world taught them a lesson instead. Sometimes strength lies in embracing what others fear." The war wasn't over. There would be more battles to come. But humanity had proven something extraordinary. In a conflict between sterile perfection and adaptive resilience, adaptation would always win. 1 year after Operation Biostorm, Earth was a changed world. The ruins of Viridian bases had become research centers where scientists study the remnants of alien technology. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in what had once been the Viridian Command Center in Dubai, now transformed into Earth's premier xenobiology institute. Their greatest mistake, she explained to a group of international delegates, wasn't underestimating our military capability. It was failing to understand that our primitive relationship with Earth's biosphere was actually our greatest strength. The victory had come at a heavy cost. Major cities lay in ruins, millions had died, and the scars of orbital bombardment would take decades to heal. But humanity had emerged stronger, more unified, and with access to technology that would have seemed magical just a few years ago. Dr. Rodriguez, now heading the Global Biological Defense Initiative, had made another crucial discovery. The Viridians weren't the only species out there who engineered themselves into sterile perfection, he reported to the United Earth Council. "Our bacterial weapons have given us a defensive capability that no advanced civilization can ignore." In orbit, Captain Patel commanded the newly commissioned Earth Defense Fleet. The ship's hybrid creations combining human ingenuity with salvaged Viridian technology carried a deadly payload, carefully engineered bacteria capable of defeating any biological or semi-biological technology that threatened Earth. The surviving Viridians had retreated to their core worlds, their once mighty empire crumbling as colony after colony fell to the bacterial contamination they couldn't control. Reports from deep space probes showed their civilization turning inward, desperately trying to maintain their sterile environments, while their technology literally died around them. Lieutenant Santos, leading the first human expedition beyond the solar system, made contact with other species who had suffered under Viridian rule. They called themselves shepherds of younger races, she transmitted back to Earth, but they were really prison wardens, forcing their vision of perfection on everyone they encountered. The discovery of other civilizations changed everything. Many had developed along similar lines to humanity, embracing their biological heritage rather than trying to engineer it away. These became Earth's first allies in the greater galaxy, forming a coalition of worlds that understood the strength in diversity and adaptation. Colonel Hayes, now General Hayes, oversaw the construction of Earth's planetary defense system. "We learned something valuable from this war," she told her staff. "The most dangerous weakness isn't in our technology or our weapons. It's in believing that there's only one right way to evolve, one perfect path to follow." Dr. Chen's research into Viridian technology led to breakthroughs in human medicine and biotechnology. But unlike their former enemies, humanity chose to work with nature rather than trying to sterilize it. They developed ways to enhance their immune systems, to coexist more effectively with their microscopic allies. The United Earth Council established new protocols for dealing with extraterrestrial civilizations. Humanity would share its knowledge, its technology, and its resources, but it would never again allow another species to claim superiority based on their definition of progress. Dr. Rodriguez, in his final address before retiring, summed up the lesson of the Viridian War. They came to teach us, to improve us, to make us more like them. Instead, they learned that true strength lies not in achieving perfection, but in maintaining the ability to adapt, to change, and to grow. As Earth rebuilt and expanded into space, they carried with them a new understanding. Their planet's greatest gift wasn't the resources they could mine or the space they could occupy. It was the billions of years of evolution that had taught them to thrive in a universe teeming with life in all its forms. The Viridian threat was over, but humanity's journey was just beginning. They had emerged from the war not just as survivors, but as guardians of a different path, one that embraced the complexity of life rather than fearing it. In the end, the invasion had given humanity something invaluable: the confidence to face the galaxy on their own terms, carrying with them the lessons learned from Earth's smallest defenders.